district clerk will administer the oath of office to James Good Jr. for a 3-year term commencing on July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2027. Yep, come stand up. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, James Good
I, James Good,
Jr.
Jr.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
that I faithfully will discharge the duties
of the office of Board of Education
of
member
the office of Board of Education member
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
and perform my duties
and perform my duties
in a manner consistent with
in a manner consistent with
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
Thank you. And if you would sign it there and take that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
The district clerk will administer the oath of office to Angela Moriello for a 3-year term commencing on July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2027. And she's ready. She's offering. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Angela Moriello,
I, Angela Morello,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Board of Education member
of the office of Board of Education member
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
and perform my duties
and perform my duties
in a manner consistent with
in a manner consistent with
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
Thank you. And you'll sign that and date there. Thank you. The district clerk will administer the oath of office to Tracy Young for a 3-year term commencing on July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2027. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Tracy Young,
I, Tracy Young,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
that I will faithfully discharge the duty
of the office of Board of Education member
of the office of Board of Education member
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
and perform my duties
and perform my duty
in a manner consistent with
in a manner consistent with
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. The district clerk will administer the oath of office to Michael Bennett, Superintendent of Schools. And repeat after me. I, Michael Bennett,
I, Michael Bennett,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Superintendent of Schools
of the office of Superintendent of Schools
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
and perform my duties
and perform my duties
in a manner consistent with
in a manner consistent with
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
and the Constitution of the State of New York. Thank you.
I need a motion to approve the agenda for the business meeting of July 8th, 2024. I have Eric and Tracy. All in favor? The district clerk will call for nominations for the office of board president. Do I have any nominations for board president? Dave?
I'll nominate Tracy Young as board president.
I'll second that.
I'll third that.
Any other nominations? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I should have written in here, okay. The district clerk will then administer the oath of office for the newly elected Board of Education president. Oh, yeah. Okay. I, Tracy Young,
I, Tracy Young,
do solemnly swear
discharge the duties
of the office of Board of Education president
of the office of Board of Education president
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
and perform my duties
and perform my duty
in a manner consistent with
in a manner consistent with
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks, Tracy.
All right, so now I get to call for nominations for the office of Vice President.
Nominate Angela Moriello.
Second that?
Okay. Any other nominations? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
You can vote for yourself.
Make it unanimous.
Congratulations, Angela.
Congratulations, both of you.
All right, we will now definitely administer the oath of office, Angela.
I, Angela Moriello,
I, Angela Moriello,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Board of Education Vice President
of the Office of Board of Education Vice President
according to the best of my ability
according to the best of my ability
and perform my duties
and perform my duties
in a manner consistent with
in a manner consistent with
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, I need a motion to approve the following appointments of officers, their action items 1 through 4. And similar to previous years, we are grouping these together. These are appointments that are pretty consistent year over year.
Okay, Kelly and Eric.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve, sorry,
Do my oath.
okay.
Yes.
All right, please repeat again. I, Daphne Pearson,
I, Daphne Pearson,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the Office of District Clerk
of the Office of District Clerk
according to the best of my ability
according to the best of my ability
and perform my duties
and perform my duties
in a manner consistent
in a manner consistent with
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United
of the United
States
States
and the Constitution of the State of New York. There we go.
Cheater.
I should know it.
Cheater, remember it. Very nice duet.
Thank you. All right, we'll continue on to other appointments and designations. Under 6, I need a motion to approve the following other appointment action items 1 through 27.
Eric and Angela.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm just interrupt 1 second. Todd, do you want to do your oath tomorrow?
Sure.
And 6.2, I need a motion to approve the school physicians, Columbia Memorial Hospital, Greenville Medical Associates, and Albany Med Emerging Care as school physicians.
Jim and Angela.
Okay, any discussion?
I'll be abstaining for personal connections.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the following annual designation action items 1 through 4.
Kelly and Eric.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now moving us on to annual authorizations. Point 7, I need a motion to approve the following annual authorizations, number 1 through number 11.
Jim and Kelly.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Good, okay. Moving us on to 8, official undertakings. I need a motion to approve the following official undertakings, action items 1 through 3.
I have Angela and Eric.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Moving us on to 9, other items. I need a motion to approve other items 1 through 11.
Kelly, Eric,
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and just, I think, for the recording, then all of the individual appointments and everything that was mentioned here is in board docs if anyone wants to follow along while they're viewing it. So with that, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting and follow up with the business meeting, please?
Eric, and Jim.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So now I'm going to call to the business meeting for July 8th to order. All right. I need a motion to approve the agenda for the business meeting of July 8th, 2024, please.
Angela and Jim.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We have an open forum. The Greenville Central School District wishes to facilitate public access to meetings of the Board of Education and to provide an opportunity for the public comment at these meetings. Accordingly, the open forum provides an opportunity for members of the public to share thoughts about topics on the agenda. An individual's comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. Additionally, comments may be emailed to the district clerk, Daphne Pearson, using the email pearsond@greenvillecsd.org. In order for an email to be read during the meeting, it must be received by 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting and state that the email is to be read out loud. Emails shall be limited to 600 words. Please note, this is not the time to register complaints that need to be addressed confidentially through the proper channels. Remarks that might be considered defamatory, obscene, profane, stigmatizing, or otherwise impermissible in public forums are prohibited and will be declared out of order. Board members actively listen during open forum but may not immediately respond to comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Do we have any emails?
No.
Okay. Then I am going to move us on to the discussion items, and the first one, we have a capital project update by Superintendent of Schools, Mike Bennett.
Thank you, Tracy. Again, I think as you notice, it's kind of hidden away. Move into the middle school, high school, and the elementary school, you may not necessarily know how much work is being done, but our construction's going as planned. As we started to move into abatement, we've gotten testing results back on our early classrooms and things like that that have been cleared and ready to be moving along with some of the demolition and redesign and restructure. A couple of things that I want to make sure the board is kind of up to speed on with a couple of things in regards to as we've gotten plans okayed and we're starting to move through and we're into subcontractors ordering things, just to keep on the radar that some of the items that we're looking to get in, whether it's cabinetry, whether it's doors, things like that, some have longer wait lists. So we're kind of monitoring because of shortages everywhere, as we know, just kind of monitoring the progress of orders as they come in to see how that's going to hold up our project at all. Right now we're moving along. We've got a couple of items that could potentially be problematic with some things being delayed, but we're keeping an eye on that, and as we get closer to the start of the school year, I'll give another update. But we're moving along well. Looking forward to just seeing the progress made during the course of the summer. Any questions?
Okay, we had, the last meeting, we had NICLAS, the New York Cooperative Liquid Assets Security System, came and presented to us, and so I'm going to turn it over to Todd Hiltendorf, the Assistant Superintendent for Business, to kind of lead the discussion on this.
So, as Tracy said, this is a follow-up from the last meeting when Joel Friedman was here giving information about NICLAS. This is an investment opportunity for the district. So really looking for any questions that the board has or just discussion for the board to have in hopes to move forward with this potentially on the August agenda to approve so that we have this as an opportunity.
Todd, I'm curious what you see us putting in those accounts.
Good question. So to start, we would like to use, one of the advantages of NICLAS is that we can put small amounts of money there and earn interest on even a small amount. So with our current accounts that we have with the banks, to earn interest at 4 or 5% at higher rate, you have to have a significant amount of money to get that. NICLAS is different. We could literally put $100 into an account in NICLAS and start earning 5.2 or whatever the interest rate is at that time. So at the beginning, kind of on different ends of the spectrum, one, some of our smaller accounts, like our student activities accounts, that currently we really don't earn interest on because those are smaller pots of money, we could put there and earn interest, and over time, that would be something that would go back into the student activities. On the opposite end is the capital project. So as we will be borrowing money in August for the capital project, that will be a significant amount of money on the front end that we would be able to put into a NICLAS account and earn interest on that before we start paying it out as contractor costs come in.
Okay, follow-up question.
Yeah.
Because you know me. So is there anything in the money that we get for the capital project? Does the state have any regulations or stipulations that we can't earn interest on that or use that interest in other, is there a specific way it has to be used?
Good question. Yes. So the interest that's earned on a capital, on money that we borrowed for the purpose of a capital project, stays in capital fund and then has to be used to pay off debt service. So for example, not next year, we're now in 24-25, so I can stop saying next year. In this current year's budget, 24-25, we have $290,000 that we are using to pay towards debt service this year. That money is actually specifically coming from previous loans that we've taken out, but while we've had that money, we've earned interest on them. That's an example of we have that money and we're using it this year to pay down debt service. So, long explanation. Short version is any interest that we earn has to go towards debt service.
Last
We
question.
can't just use it to purchase something new and shiny.
Right. So my last question has to do with the student accounts.
Yep.
When those are in interest, what happens to that interest?
So by board policy, it goes to student council.
Couple questions, Doc?
Yeah.
I think you said that there's prior capital funding that's being used that earn interest that's being used to pay now.
Correct. Previous projects, when we borrowed the money that has sat in other bank accounts, we've earned interest on them, and it all gets put aside for debt service purposes.
And the interest on NICLAS is higher, or is it, I haven't had a chance to look at the handout, so is it a higher interest rate, or it's an investment account, so it has potential to earn more?
It's a higher, typically it is a higher interest rate. Right now, well, as of the presentation that Jill gave to us a couple weeks ago, it was 5.22%. Contrast that to our money market account that we currently have with the Bank of Kosaki, that's at 4%. Other accounts earn 1%. We actually just shifted some money last week from another 1% one to a 5% one. So within our current bank accounts, we look and try to get the greatest interest rate possible. NICLAS offers that opportunity that they are going to most likely have the highest interest rate available.
And other than the capital account and the student accounts, will other balances be moved in?
We could, but that would be over time to look and see how other things shake out. In the short term, that's what I would be recommending, is those kind of two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Okay, one more question. Otherwise, it's as liquid as a checking account, no minimum balance or?
Correct.
Any fees?
Nope.
Well, there are fees. Well, the fees are the percent.
Correct. The fees are built into the percent. The percent that, again, 5.22, that's the percent that we're earning. The actual percentage that the money is earning is like 5.3. I have to look at it, it's 3.3. They're taking that off the top, so to speak. But there's no other additional fees to join. There's not an annual fee to be part of it. It is, there are no other fees. So NICLAS specifically exists for the purpose of municipalities, school districts, to invest money in this way.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
I have one more question. What happens later this year, interest rate drops, things aren't great anymore? Is there a penalty? Is there anything that we can close it with no problem?
Correct. And actually, you don't have to even close it. You can we could leave the accounts there, but we might take all the money out because we have a better interest rate opportunity with the National Bank of Coxsackie or Green County Savings Bank. I mentioned those two because those are the two banks that we currently have accounts with. We could take it all out of NICLAS and put it there because that's a higher interest rate. We could still leave that account there with NICLAS because at any time, we might want to move it back.
I like the fact of diversifying a little bit, because I think one of the things that came out from the last presentation is we weren't as diversified as we need to be for that. I think, though, at the same time, it is balancing kind of the use of local banks, and I would hate to see us move away from that, because I think that the sense of community, the school district, a local bank, and everything else is important to foster for that. I'm probably more along the lines of putting it in for the capital project. I know that right now, in kind of looking at the auditor's report and everything else, it seems to be a low risk for that, but there always is risk for that. It's not insured. Yes, it's backed by T-bills and everything else, but it's not like a savings account where you have $250 that is $250,000 that is backed by the government and everything else. So I would be more comfortable kind of putting a cap on the resolution that we have to use, and at least initially specifying these are the areas that we want to use. I mean, that's kind of where I'm netting out. But I'd like to try it a little bit before.
So since you mentioned diversification, we mentioned that last meeting as well. That is part of the point of this, right? The point of this is not to dissolve any of our current accounts. Certainly, like NICLAS does not offer a checking account. We're not writing checks out of a NICLAS account. We need our local bank for those pieces, and there's other advantages to having our local banks in the accounts that we currently have. So those would absolutely continue to exist. This would just provide another opportunity, often with a higher interest rate, for those areas that we can shift money there. But by no means am I advocating that we close any accounts or nope, like keep all the current accounts we have, just creating another opportunity to put the money in other places and diversify where the total amount of the district's finances reside.
Right. So, and the only other question I really had is everyone comfortable with whatever interest is earned on the student accounts then going to student council?
Todd, I have a couple questions. Do you think you or your department would have the ability or the interest in doing the work yourself to mirror what these folks are offering, or you don't have the time?
No. Time and personnel, yeah. The amount of time that would go into that.
The vehicles that they're investing in are allowable for school districts.
Absolutely, yes. And that's how they're able to do it,
Right.
because they have to follow all the requirements from the state in terms of what schools can and can't do. So they meet all those requirements. You are absolutely correct in that we could, as a district, do all this on our own. I can't fathom that in terms of the personnel that it would take to manage that and do it at a level that NICLAS does.
Okay.
Good question.
No, I accept that. I appreciate the honesty, actually. I spoke to a couple of board members that I know of, and they had never heard of it, which was not surprising, because if you look at it, it looks like it's kind of spotty around the state. In fact, in Greene County, it's kind of spotty. So that made me wonder if it's such a great, and I view it as a pretty good opportunity. But what it is really is it's a parking lot. Send some money there, park it there for a while, and it's easy. One of my fellow board members, not on this board, but mentioned that, you know what, you're paying for someone to do work that you could do. I believe you could do it, but I believe you don't have the time.
Thanks for your confidence.
I also, yeah. But it also insulates you from that, right? You know, if you were in.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Like,
You're
this
gonna-
is what they do, right? This is their expertise as an organization, so.
But if you get down the road and we give you the power to invest $1 million or something like that, then it's on you.
We could. We absolutely could.
Yeah.
No, but actually, to that point, I'm not sure if we're doing it individually, whether it would be as liquid
That's
as
also true.
NICLAS. And that's one of the key points, because if we go out and we were to purchase T-bills,
Right.
or
No,
whatever.
it would take a long time to become liquid. You'd have to set up a ladder and rotate these things in and out. No, it wouldn't. They have $13 billion that
Correct.
they would only get in trouble if everybody all of a sudden.
Want to pull their money all the
Right.
same time.
That would be, when those kind of financial situations happen, I think that everybody's in the same game. That's all, you know. But I appreciate putting this off till next month, because I would like more time to take another look at it.
And could we just get, I realized that the name of the firm that decided that they weren't going for, I don't have the exact details, the auditors, it's a very special or specific designation that they decided not to do it. I didn't have an answer on why they are not pursuing it. So they had to change auditors because the previous firm is no longer doing, I don't know, call it Class A. I can look it up, and there's a very specific designation for public entities that you're a CPA, and it's like 3 stars after your CPA that allows you to do this. So NICLAS was informed that the current CPA was no longer going to be having those 3 stars. But I didn't get an answer as to why. So they had to change firms because the previous firm, which is still in business, because I Googled them and everything else, is no longer going for that specificity, but I don't have an answer why. So I'd just like to know why.
I can ask.
Okay.
Joe might not know that. I mean,
If we're
NICLAS
gonna
might not
invest
know.
$7 million, I'd like to have an answer.
But I mean, NICLAS might not understand why their auditors no longer sought out that
Right.
certification, right? NICLAS just knows that, nope, we can't go with them anymore because they don't have the certification that's required for us to do business with them.
Yes and no. I don't know, wouldn't someone,
Well, if a company
Yeah.
decides no longer to, you know, hold
Right.
that level of rating to be able to ensure that, they can back out and say, okay, maybe it's gotten too rich for that. And again, I don't know if NICLAS would know, but it would be the auditor to call the, have to contact that company to see why they're no longer pursuing
Right.
that level of, I don't know if that's a reflection on NICLAS or just a reflection on,
Maybe the guy with the cert retired.
Retired.
could have been,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, you
it
never
could
know.
be a very simple answer.
You can ask the
And
questions.
if we don't ask the question, maybe we'll never get the simple answer, but I think that it's worth just asking it, because that's kind of what went through my mind. Okay, probably the individual may have been retiring, you know, there's CPA credits, it's additional training that has to go through, and so forth. But, NICLAS, if you're told that, okay, the firm that we're using is no longer going to have that certification, you would ask, why? Why not? So,
I will ask the question.
all right. You know me, it's my favorite question, why? Thank you.
One more question, Todd. It's a bit of a follow-up to Tracy's comment about a cap, but when you talk about moving capital project funds into NICLAS, is there, and diversifying overall, is there a percentage or a cap on the amount of the capital project funds you would move in versus keep elsewhere?
In terms of that bucket of money, so to speak, we could technically do anything, is the technical answer. It makes the most sense to keep those
Keep it together?
buckets of money together, right? So that we're not then trying to manage, it just makes more work behind the scenes of if we're now managing this set amount of money in 2 different places with 2 different interests, we're now tracking all of that separately, when in reality, it's all coming together in the end, if that makes sense.
I think
So-
so. Actually, I lied. I do have one more question, just to understand the risk. If we're talking about T-bills predominantly, it seems fairly safe, but, you know, today's pointed out, you know, probably not a bad position unless there's a run on NICLAS and everyone's trying to get their money out. What unlikely event would trigger that? Do you know? Just to understand what the actual risk might be. Are we talking about global economic meltdown, or is it something, the 2008
Yeah.
financial crisis, or is it something less dramatic than that? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what doomsday activity that might be. I mean, there are, and I'm not sure if Mr. Freeman mentioned it when he was here, it was one of my conversations with him separately, that they very much, they have cycles in terms of when they get money. So obviously school districts, when taxes are collected, we have a lot more funds in the fall because we're collecting taxes. So a lot of their funds increase during that time from school, deplete over the course of the year. That cycle is different for municipalities like townships, right? So they know that, and have that built in. But in terms of like everybody all at once going to them to say we need our money, I don't know what that would be like. I don't know when a school would just suddenly need all of the funds all at once that they have invested.
I think it's less the school or other entity needing the money, as much as something happens where there's a loss of confidence in the vehicles that are being invested in or something else. Again, I realize it's hopefully highly unlikely, just again trying to understand what the actual risk is given the lack of any deposit insurance. Thanks.
One more thing, Jay. When you get a chance to look into it, they invest in very secure things. I forget what the percentage is, but 70–80% are just T-bills, right? So they're going to be cyclical. So a catastrophic drop-off with their volume of investments, their returns are never going to follow that kind of drop-off. If there is a catastrophic event, it will take a while to affect this outfit, I believe. Todd, on the capital, you have to refresh my memory. On a capital project, is the money staged along with completion dates that you get from the state, or do you get it all at once?
So when we borrow money, we're actually for this project borrowing two main chunks. One will be this summer, the next will be next year.
Okay.
That's by choice, what makes sense, and done again, our financial advisors kind of stage out what makes the most sense, and by getting this amount of money up front, how much can we earn in interest, so we hold it, but we don't want to borrow too much, because then we're paying interest on it as well. So it's purposely staged. In this project, there'll be one borrowing this summer, another borrowing next summer.
Based on when you're going to need to pay out.
Correct, based on the cash flow projections for the project.
Right, right. So probably not. But I was thinking if you had end funds that you could anticipate you might not need, those might be an opportunity to invest in. And then if you needed it, you could pull it up the next day. But what you said about the money being borrowed in stages, you're already locked up.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And Todd, just to clarify, I do think it's a good idea. I just like to do it cautiously, since we're borrowing this money, it's not our money, and so I just like to be fiscally conservative.
And it is a big undertaking, right? For many years, the district has had what we have, right? Which is two banks, and it's great work, so I don't want to discredit any of that. This is just looking for an opportunity to diversify, as I've said. So I understand the questions. It's a big deal.
Any other questions? All right, if people think of things, please email them, and then it would be on the August business meeting. Okay. All right, now we're going to move on to the athletic follow-up, and we'll have Denise Wickham, the director of HPE, and Rich Notrum, directors of facilities.
Yeah, so at our last meeting, there was a couple of questions that were wondered but not asked in and around athletic fields and expectations of those things. So I wanted to have Rich be able to speak to some of that. There was another question about the modified or the cheer club, which was on the June 10th board meeting and voted on with the advisor and passed. And the other piece was uniform ordering. So Denise will talk about that a little bit. Rich will talk about the athletic fields, and then if there's any other questions people have. But Rich, you want to just talk about the process your crew goes through when it comes to getting, primarily we're talking about outdoor fields, whether they were soccer, baseball, softball fields, knowing the conditions and rain, what you guys go through in order to decide whether or not the field is playable?
Most of the time, soccer field doesn't really matter. I mean, as long as it's mowed and lined, wet, they play on and stuff like that. Baseball and softball, it depends a lot on the weather, and we've never really been able to start April 1st like everybody's wanted us to. The fields, everything here is clay, so it holds water really well. So this year we were, I think, 5 inches over in the amount of rainfall that we had, so the fields were wet all year pretty much. But we tried, we go out, if there's a game that day, I go out first thing in the morning, check the field, see if I can walk on it. Mike's been out there a couple times with me. You walk out, you sink an inch or two into the, into the clay, you can't get on it at that particular time. So we kind of wait, and Denise has to know by 10 or 11 o'clock if we can actually play that day, because she has to cancel the refs, all the other teams and stuff like that. So if we can get on it, we get on it as soon as we can, and then we can usually get it finished, lined, and everything for that day.
I have a question. So I know that we deal with this year after year. I don't know if there's a way that we can do something differently. Like, do you have any idea? Not to discount what you're doing. I know it's not easy, but what is the solution moving forward? Because I feel like it's the same thing every year.
I agree with you. It is the same every year. So ever since I've been here, it's been, I mean, we went from the baseball field down here where the track was a swamp. And we tried to work on that. I think this second year I was here, they played on it, I think, twice that year. So the new fields do have some drainage in them. We worked on it. We put a lot of money into the other field. It helped a little, not a lot. You would have to put a major amount of drainage into the fields in order for it to be able to play that early. Usually after April 15th, we're in pretty good shape. Once they dry out, we can get games in unless it rains that night. I mean, a lot of people have heard a couple, it rains all night, and then at 4 o'clock when the game is supposed to be played, the field is beautiful. But we couldn't get out on it because it was wet all morning. So we do try. I mean, we try to get out on it. But if we can't get on it, can't do anything with it, it's hard, because we're just going to tear it up and ruin the drainage that's already in there. So
I think that's a really frustrating thing for everybody. We live in the Northeast, so you're battling with the frost, which we have up until like mid-April, a lot of times, and then we have the rain showers that come and stuff. So it's a frustration all the way around. I know that they did try to put some additional training in the baseball field, and ironically, the softball field then was beautiful, right? And then it flip-flops back and forth between the fields, which one we can play on, which one we can't. Rich, will normally tell me, I don't know if we can get on this, like early enough in the morning, because of all those other factors that I have to deal with, and I appreciate that. One of the things, the only idea I have is really looking at our systems, like you don't have anybody that can work a field later, like after 2:30 in the afternoon. So we don't have personnel that could do that. So, looking at some of those systems to see if we can do something different, but we may not be able to because of contracts and that kind of stuff. You just don't know. But sitting down and having those conversations might, benefit all of us.
I have a question. So, and I will caveat with, I know nothing about this, okay? But there's a perception that if you just get out and rake it, and I can't tell you how many times I have read that, been told that, and everything else. So for the record, could you please explain this to me and why it won't work?
water seeks its own level, meaning if there's a puddle here, it's because there's a low spot in the dirt. And the water level is the same all along. So all you can do is fill in that hole. Well, what they do is come, and we've had parents come and do this. They've started raking the field, and they'll rake it off the side of the field, and then they make a big mound going out into the outfield or up. They did it on the lower field, and they made a dam basically on the edge of the field, so all the water that's coming down the field just got trapped in there. So it made it worse than it was. And it doesn't help at all to rake. To get it needs to dry out before you can actually get on and do anything. Raking doesn't really help it.
And I would say, Rich and I have been talking about this a lot, like every year you see these big mounds of dirt out there because you have to continuously be replacing the infield dirt on all of these fields or you get a lip around the edge. And I know that they've edged many times to bring that lip down because that's not a safe thing either. So it takes a lot to maintain, especially baseball and softball fields.
The last 5 years we've had at least, we've had 70 ton of clay delivered every year. I just had 70 ton, they were putting it out on the fields today. So we try to fill in all the low spots and the lip that's around the outside where the outfield starts, we try to fill that all in so it's nice and level going out. The bases down at the modified field, the baselines, we had to fill those in a little bit because they were getting low. But if you come by on a windy day in the middle of the summer, you'll see a cloud coming off of it. All the clay is blown away. So we try to keep up with it as much as we can. It's basically the weather that really keeps us
May I ask a question?
working on it.
Okay, way more comfortable discussing how to build ice for hockey, so bear with me. But you see like the major leagues, like with those ground covers, does something like that help? Do we have that kind of thing, or is that a completely different situation?
That's a completely different situation. Have you ever watched them roll that up?
Yeah.
It takes like 20 guys to push that all in, and then it's sitting against the dugouts. Yeah, and all that. That's what they put the mats over the pitcher's mound and the base, and when we roll that off, all that water just seeps into the field right there. It makes a puddle there.
Again, these are things we keep hearing, so we're asking the questions people want to know.
I mean, would that be really nice to have as an athletic director? That'd be awesome. But I don't think our kids could probably manage that, and I definitely don't think 3 of our maintenance people could probably do that if you're looking at a whole infield for like a baseball field. That's not even reasonable.
And that would roll up right in front of one of the dugouts, so they'd have to climb over it every time they wanted to get in on the dugout.
I have another question. Just, you said that the only solution would be better drainage. Do you, in your mind, when you say that, are you thinking like ditches and pipes under the ground or different soil mixture? Like, what are you envisioning for both?
Different soil. I mean, if it was gravel underneath, which a lot of places have, in different places you go, then it would just sit away. You wouldn't have to worry about it. I mean, you could have a field on a gravel base, and you wouldn't have to worry about it.
I mean, and the big thing with the fields is like safety, right? So like Rich goes out in the morning and he sinks in an inch. That's not safe to play on. I know that a lot of like the little leagues and that kind of stuff, they will just throw tons of like, what's it called, that diamond dry on there, right, to soak that up, and that's good in some respects, but then that kind of takes away from your field over time when you're doing that.
Diamond dry will dry, and it'll be like concrete after a while.
First of all, Rich, Denise, I want to tell you, none of this is your fault. I actually think you're doing a good job taking care of the facilities that we put money into. I think the problem is perception and realization that maybe we have sports at the wrong time. And I'm wondering, Denise, if you had athletic director discussions with directors from other schools about not having so many games, or at least this year, and I know the state tournament goes into June, So if we shrunk the season, or if they had discussions about having baseball and softball in the fall, where the weather is a bit more predictable. But I remember this year, you know, in April, there was a game scheduled and it snowed. And I said, well, Rich ain't gotta worry about that, cause, he got no Zamboni, we didn't buy one of those.
I'm telling you, it's a good sport.
So those are my suggestions, Denise, if you shrink the season down a little bit, cause to play and, I actually think you had games scheduled for at least the very beginning of April or March. And that is ridiculous. That should be cut off right at the scheduling meeting. It's never gonna happen. So throwing those games on there is wishful thinking at the most. But this has gone on for a long time. Long before you were here, Rich, I was involved with baseball in this school when my son was playing, and the facilities were a crime to play on. I mean, the kids didn't worry about water. They were out there getting glass and stones off the infield. I remember rolling up to the field one time, and they had poured a bunch of diesel fuel on home plate to evaporate the water. Set it on fire. I thought that was pretty neat. But I think parents need to, reel in their expectations a little bit. But I will say that that's the first time I'd ever heard that the decision, and I think that is a communication lacking. The decision needs to be made at 10 o'clock, and I can understand that you guys feel kind of foolish when it's sprinkling at 8 in the morning, and then all of a sudden it's windy and things are drying out, and at 4 o'clock game time, it's 85 degrees and everybody's screaming at you. So I would hammer that communication about when the decision has to be made, when phone calls have to be made.
Well, definitely you want to make that decision before noon. Like, right around noon is a sweet spot. I pushed it sometimes to like 1, 2, but then you're trying to catch people before they're leaving, because if an official leaves, then you have to pay. And, so, that's a little bit, but going back to what you said, Dave, is, I have no control over the season, when it starts, and that kind of stuff. And when, because it's all based on when we have a state tournament, and then they all work their way
Backs
back.
off, yeah.
The spring season is the shortest season that we have. It's an 8-week season. The fall season's an 8-week season too. But if you were to put baseball and softball in the fall, it would disrupt
Everything.
the whole entire state. Not that I don't think that's a great idea. Working the fields, it's constant, like you were saying, like Rich was saying, you get those low spots. You gotta constantly be working them. And then, what happens if something else happens and you get pulled away, right? And that happens to Rich all the time. So we do the best we can in trying to make it work for everybody, but we cannot control Mother Nature. If I could, I would. I really would. Dry everything up and we'd be out there all the time.
I really appreciate the back and forth, just because we do hear it a lot on social media, or people just come up to us, and sports are big here, and these are our stakeholders, and I don't want to tell them to reel in their expectations. I hope that there's some solution out there in the universe that we can try to work toward at some point. I don't want to just shrug our shoulders and say too bad. So that's kind of where I stand. I know maybe I need to reel it in, but I don't want to.
No, it's hard because we put $100,000 into the baseball field and it really didn't do a lot for it. And what do you put into it when we did the project, we have so much money to put towards the baseball field, the softball field, and that's the amount of money that we put into it. We did this much drainage, we did this, and we can keep putting more money and more money into it for 6 baseball games. I mean, it's where you want to draw the line there for the money that you put into it. I mean, we try our hardest. Like I said, when there's a baseball game, I get here first thing in the morning, I go out in the fields. Can we go on them? Can we not go on them? And so we do our best. best to have the
And then you're trying to decide whether, okay, it's gonna go away, right? Like, there are times I'm like, okay, Rich, we got it, it's not gonna rain in the afternoon, right? We just need to get out there and do it. So they get out there and do it, and then all of a sudden we get a rain shower, and I'm like, seriously? You know, so they put in all of that time that they could be doing other things. You know, not that it's wasted time, but, you know, it's resources, it's everything. So trying to figure that out is really frustrating for everybody.
And just for the record, I do appreciate what you guys do. I just like to ask questions.
No, that's fine.
No, I know there's questions out there. I know parents get really riled up about things, so.
And I think there are times where we could get out and rake, but again, do we have people to be able to rake a whole entire infield for softball or a whole entire baseball infield? That's a lot of hand raking to do.
So that's the other question and the other comment we hear a lot about. Is there a reason that it can only be the grounds crew? Who is allowed to do it? Why can't they have, we hear this all around about parents and teams raking or doing the work.
I don't think you want parents in here raking the field.
They say they will.
They're gonna make more damage than.
We've been there and done that, like Rich said, there's a lot of damage that occurs because of that, because some people feel like you should be able to trench them, right? So they take the end of the rake and they just go all the way out to the outfields, you know, and then that causes more issues than it's worth. And pulling the dirt off of the field into the grass, now we're creating low spots where when it rains, we're gonna have more puddles, right? So it's really actually counterintuitive. You need to put more dirt. And actually, I think Rich and the grounds crew did that this season. And the softball field right behind second base, where the second baseman stands at first base, that was really wet a lot of the time. And Rich brought in more dirt, and we put that down, and then that kind of solved that problem. There's a lot of things that people think that they know, but they don't really know. It's a tricky thing.
Again, just
I
the
think
questions we
teams
get,
should
not
be
because I
able
think.
to, right? I bought a lot of rakes this year so that teams could, you know, the first base play, you know, the first baseman can go out there and rake up after a game, level everything out so we don't have any low spots. Catcher can do the same thing, because there's certain low spots like pitching mounds and, you know, and the catchers and the batters boxes and that kind of stuff. If we can level that out, it seems to, I think it dries out quicker. Would you agree?
Yeah, if we rake the field, there's a nail rake that we go over it with, and if we can go over it with the nail rake, it usually kind of fluffs it up, and if the wind is blowing a little bit, it will dry it out.
Would it be possible for coaches to be trained on how to do this, and then they could go on those days where it's iffy and rake the fields, or are they the ones that are doing it wrong?
You mean the nail rake on the machines?
Yeah, like, I don't know, I know nothing about raking fields.
No, I don't think we want any coaches using machines. I had to go yell at Matt, one of the softball coaches, because he was doing the same thing that the other parents were doing. Raking everything out of the infield. And I went up there and I said, all right, wait a minute. The puddle went back to where it was because water seats its own level. And I said, look what you did. All of this, after it dried, all of this clay was laying on the grass there. I said, that's just gonna mound up every time you do this, and then you're gonna have a ramp there going out to the outfield. So you're just taking the clay and pushing it all out of the infield onto the outfield.
Well, and it's talking to coaches and saying, like, because I know when I go out and I hand rake on one of the fields, I will pull puddles out, but I never pull it out into the outfield, right? I'll just disperse it a little so it can dry up a little bit better.
Since we've had the new fields, how often have you had parents or coaches rake dirt in a way that mounts it, pulls it off the field to the outfield, or?
Just a couple times. I don't know if I've seen any parents out there, just the coaches.
Okay. And if there isn't, again, it's something I don't know anything about, I don't know what communication there is around like when you have to decide. But I hear you saying if you have to decide at say 10 in the morning, the condition could be very different by the time the game would actually be played. I don't know if there's an understanding of that. in the community, I think that would be helpful. I think someone else made the same comment about communicating that. So I don't know how it is currently communicated. It's probably worth having that information out there. Maybe even, and if you don't already have some notice or statement against like just leave it to you guys, then you maybe consider that too. So again, it's hard to tell if that's an actual problem or just happens from time to time, but we don't want to take a problem and just make it worse by well-intentioned efforts that are counterproductive.
I think there were two other questions, one related to the modified uniforms and the other one was the cheer club.
Oh, and another one. My biggest one is the spectator sportsmanship. I really think we need a cut and dry policy. It needs to be available to everyone. And I know you spoke on it. It breaks your heart to tell a parent they can't attend a game, but they have every right to attend if they behave. So I'm kind of like black and white on that.
I'm sorry, Angela, I didn't follow everything. Which one are we talking about?
That was about the spectator sportsmanship question. I feel like we need to have that laid out pretty, on the website or someplace where coaches can access it, reference it, show the parents, and then if a spectator in the gym, on the field, anywhere is acting inappropriately or threatening a coach or yelling and screaming and swearing, they should not be allowed to be at the game. That's just unacceptable. It's teaching our kids to behave that way, and it's teaching disrespect. So what can we do to make sure that that is like a zero tolerance?
Well, there's an athletic code of conduct,
Yeah, I see
right?
it to you guys, like section 2 has, their spectator sportsmanship guidelines and stuff, and then also NISBA, our governing body, has that as well. We follow those, so the Truman Conference, which is the conference we're in, as a school district, you're supposed to be following those rules. Yes. Do people lose their minds? Yes. Okay, I'm looking at Eric, he's probably seen it in a soccer game or two. I'm not sure that, zero tolerance is the best way to go with that, because once people feel like they're threatened, they normally don't do what you expect, right? So you have to have those conversations. I know I have conversations with people, like coaches will say to me, so-and-so was out of control. And then I will call that parent up and I will have a conversation with them about their behavior and what the expectation is. People have different ways of voicing frustration, I would say. Some people are a lot louder than others. And I know that, one of the things that was asked was, what do you do with that? Like who's in charge of that? So, that's self-regulation first and foremost. Like, if you know you can't go to a game or contest without getting frustrated, then you either need to put yourself away from everybody else, or you need to not go. People aren't very good with that. And then there's coaches also, they model sportsmanship for everybody. I have seen spectators get out of control because the coaches got out of control. And they feel like that's okay. Because the coach is upset, then it's okay for them to be upset. We also have chaperones at most of our events. Hopefully we have a chaperone there. They will go over and try to address it as well. It's very difficult when there's somebody in your face. That's like, what do you do in that situation? Do we call the police? So those are the things that you have to think about with that. Ironically, this year, other than baseball season, our parents were very, very good. It's mostly the visiting teams that I've had problems with parents. Okay, and then I can't call them up and have a conversation with them because I don't know who they are. But we could try to get names discounting it, but it's a problem everywhere with sportsmanship right now. And it's feeding into other challenges that we have with officials and all of that, so.
Maybe zero tolerance is a little strong, but how about just like really strict about it? Like if you have a repeat offender, they obviously have a problem, and our students are seeing this, and they're growing into adults someday, and we don't want to be putting out that product.
Yeah. And I think our kids have been very good. Like, they know what the expectation is, and I will go up and call them out on it. The chaperones will go up and call them out on it. It's harder with adults because you don't know what you're gonna get. I mean, I had a gentleman telling me I couldn't tell him what he could do and he could be anywhere he wants. And I'm like looking at him like, and sometimes, Angela, just being really honest, you get caught off guard. You're like, what is going on with this person, right? And that can be very scary for like anybody that's dealing with those types of people that escalate, like go from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds.
Yeah, I agree. It makes a lot of people super uncomfortable, and with the prevalence of anxiety, the students are seeing it, they're in a game, and it could trigger them, and then they don't play well, so it's just not good.
Well, if we know that we have certain sports that seem to be more problematic, then perhaps we could have Officer Rogers, or we could talk to the sheriff.
I've done it before.
We've been there.
Called in Officer, Deputy Rogers to a game because we've had issues like with Catskill soccer. We had a huge issue at Catskill. We came here the next year, and I had a deputy there. He had 2 other deputies there, like just saying, hey, we're on this. We're visible. Like, we're here to play game. And I think that's what people have to understand is we're here to play game. We're not, taking our frustrations out on whatever, other people.
How many times this last year did it happen where there was an issue? I mean, I hear that it's mostly not the district parents, but whether it's, regardless of who it was, how often was there an issue?
I would say like a handful of times. Usually people are pretty good. But we're not always where we need to be at the right time either. And what I mean by that, what I mean by that is there's other things that either we don't have enough personnel, or we're doing other types of things like parking people because people don't know how to park, not on the grass. So there's other things that happen. And in the evening time, there's limited personnel here. There's not very many people here. So if you don't have personnel in the right spots, so like your chaperones are parking people instead of being around people, then you're going to have issues. Or potentially have more issues.
I agree with the zero tolerance policy. I realize it's kind of a spectrum or gradation of behavior, and not every
Cultural thing.
discontented person should be tossed. I think we should be able to do that. I don't think it's fair to put that on the chaperone or the coach necessarily. I understand the personnel, and I was thinking soon about Officer Rogers or an SRO, if we could have them present to try to deal with things like that. It should send a message, for one, and 2, hopefully they'll be around, and they don't have to be right there. I think when it happens, even if they're say in a different field, they should still be able to respond and deal with it, even if it means removing someone from it. I don't know what the extra cost would be, but depending on what it is, I think it's worth looking into, because I think it's too disruptive for the reasons that were said to tolerate it, especially the worst examples of it. And I think there are a few good solutions for those examples, other than have someone there who clearly has the expectation of authority to actually deal with it.
We actually do have a lot of law enforcement that come to our games because we have a lot of kids that have law enforcement, like their parents are in that, so they actually, but they're not in that capacity at that time.
Right. That's why I think I see the point that you have off-duty law enforcement there because they have an interest but I mean, my recommendation would be that we find a solution along those lines.
So I think the first thing we would have to do is take a look at how many home contests we have from modified all the way up to varsity, and just kind of start to collect the number of hours that we would need someone here, and then engage with Greene County Sheriff to say, we're looking at 500 hours worth of additional time on top of the SRO's time. What would that cost?
And maybe, so that might be the total, have some here for everything, but if there are particular clubs or sports that seem to be more problematic, then I'm going to have the SRO here to try to help discipline the parents of the chess club kids, for example. But we know that the soccer is probably going to go peacefully, and we don't need them there. And we try to be more selective based on your experience and go from there. In other words, to have someone covering everything might be cost prohibitive, at least to start, if there's not a need, but we can try to target it. If you could collect that information, I'd appreciate it.
There are definitely some sports that are more heightened, I would say, than others. Like, I don't think I ever have a volleyball issue, right? Or cross country, or track, right? It's like, they seem to do pretty well. It's our team sports they get, because there's more on the line, I think, for them.
And then one of the other questions was pertaining to, I guess, the uniforms for modified. Can we hold money back, or do you have any suggestions? As some coaches are paying out of pocket, and so that seems excessive.
I'm not sure about anybody that should be paying out of pocket, because they're doing that on their own if they are. We have uniforms for every team. So whether
They don't fit.
some of them don't, right? So for modified, I went to basically a t-shirt system for them.
Oh, thank you, Angela.
Look how teeny that is.
Fabulous, love it. So what do they wear besides the t-shirts?
But
Pants,
Yeah,
shorts,
like black shorts, for the most part, right? So I know there was a concern that one of the coaches brought about shorts for soccer. But these seem to work really well for modified. They're in them for 1, maybe 2 years. I'm sorry, I'm not speaking into the microphone. But these can last like anywhere up to, and I can use them from one sport to another. So if I have a size that doesn't fit somebody, I can take one from the cross country and put it over in there and find the size that fits. Or I can order one of these and have it in a reasonable amount of time. When you do sublimated uniforms and you're doing custom uniforms like you do for JV varsity, there is no way, because it takes 6 to 8 weeks to get a uniform. So by the time you get the uniform, the season's over.
So now, related to the shorts, the black shorts, are parents responsible for providing the black shorts? Like, where do they get the black shorts? Because
So
my
those are
understanding-
all in their bins and that kind of stuff. And I know soccer had an issue. They're like, well, I've got a ladies, it's just the inseams of them were different. But it did say ladies in it, and I did say to myself, I should probably cross that out or somebody's gonna complain about it. But they're the same shorts. Some of our smallest kids, the boys, can't have an inseam. They were wearing shorts that were like 3/4 pants, right? That's what they look like on them.
So Denise, I was under the impression, and maybe other people are too, that you're taking the varsity uniforms and cycling them down. They
That
cycle
never
down to
works.
JV only, or they don't?
So what I do for ordering is JV and varsity, I order the same uniform because a lot of our kids will float between JV and varsity, right? So they can play, as long as they play the minimum or the maximum number of contests, they can float between. So I don't have the same numbers for them or anything so that they don't have to try and find another uniform. So say for instance soccer, right? So I estimate on the high end 20 kids on varsity, 20 kids on JV, right? So I'm ordering 80 different sets of uniforms because you got whites and darks. They all have different numbers. The kids can float back and forth. That is so expensive. That can cost me, I think $11,000 it cost me for the soccer. Just did boys basketball, again, 2 sets of uniforms cost me $9,000. So it's a cost kind of thing too. This inexpensive, kids are in them for very long. It works well. I did look into other shorts, so I have some different options for that too, and it's not gonna be that costly to just do a black short. You always are gonna run into issues with sizing because we're not custom fitting kids with uniforms. So when I'm trying to order, I'm like, okay, 2XL all the way down to youth, extra large, right? And then you might, but somebody's not gonna fit somewhere. And, for modified, I think, normally you think about smaller sizes for modified, and we need to adjust our thinking on that a little bit too.
I really appreciate this conversation because I was told by multiple people that the varsity uniforms are ordered and as they get old, they cycle down and then they cycle down and they're too big for modified and they don't fit. Like, I didn't even know any of this, so I don't know if other people were told that as well, but this is enlightening for me.
They do that in a lot of school districts, but those uniforms are never gonna fit those littler kids. So that's pointless to do that. Especially you get a 2XL, your kid's gonna, then they try to adjust it and they're pulling straps around them. Some of the parents are trying to take them in.
Go ahead, Eric.
Go ahead, Eric.
So I recall, at least from being involved, that I think we're on a 3-year cycle or a 4-year cycle for the uniforms.
So usually for most sports, you can do a 4-year cycle. So soccer, and some like soccer, baseball and softball is a little tricky too because, they slide and then we get holes. But what I've asked the coaches to do is do like 6 pants every year. So you're on a replacement for the pants at least. And then there are times that we have to order them all. And it's the same thing with, modifieds. We get the, the ones with the elastic around the shins and stuff like that. So it's not the ones with piping and that look a little bit sharper, but every kid has a uniform. So if a coach is saying they don't have a uniform or they're buying and stuff, then they don't like what they have. And that's different than them not having it. And varsity coaches are in charge of supplies for the whole entire program, from modified, JV, and varsity. So they should be talking to their modified and their JV coaches and saying, hey, what do you guys need, right? Like, I had to replace all of the modified basketball uniforms. I did it with year-end monies. And the reason I did that is because one of my coaches brought it, and all the numbers were peeling off of the uniform. And those were not old. So you also have to be careful about where you order from, because it's not always the best quality in some places. Sublimated uniforms are really good because I don't know if you guys know what that is. Sublimated, this one is they iron them on kind of thing. That's what this is. And then if people don't take care of them right, they put them in a hot dryer, this will stick to each other, and then they pull it apart and the number's gone. So some of it's care and stuff, but sublimated, the number's right in the material. So it's not falling off, it's not that.
Jim, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I have a question. Obviously, so what you're saying, usually you get 4 seasons out of, or do you take feedback from the players as far as one manufacturer might change from one time and they might even just shift their product, but do you get feedback from the players each season to find out how it was and maybe how it could be a little bit better on feel each year, at least, so when you do go to get something a little different, you have something to go by?
I don't personally do that, but I know the coaches will ask some of the players, like our tennis uniforms. I think our tennis girls picked and selected those. But the coach gave me that information, the final information for me to order those.
so I would rely on my coaches to do that. All right, thank you, I appreciate it. We had a lot of questions, so we appreciate all the information. Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Carol.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to move us on to we have a Board of Education member refresher opportunities. Opportunities, that's a nice word, Mike.
Yeah.
Take it away.
You like that better than mandated training?
Yeah, mandated training, guys.
All right, well, we'll go with opportunities then. Yeah, so Quest R3 has, and I mentioned, I think that before the board meeting, you are now mandated to take the workplace violence training, which is a relatively short training, and then we've got our mandated reporter training, which for faculty and staff who are working with kids is a 2-hour training. But for board members, it's not a 2-hour training. It can be done in 40 to 45 minutes. So the thought was that, when talking with some board members about how they wanted to do this, they felt that in person was the best way to do it. So Quest R3 is available on July 29th, which is the board workshop, to come in and take an hour or slightly more than an hour of the time to get the board to check those boxes, to make sure that they are complete. So just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that, and we're looking at the 29th to do that.
I want to say thank you for adjusting so my schedule can stay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So you're baking the cookies that you're going to bring?
I'll buy cookies if I
There
need
we
to.
go, exactly. If everyone could just look at their calendars for the 29th, and please let Daphne know if you are unable to attend, because then we'll have to, since it is a requirement, there'll have to be an additional schedule. But right now, then it'll be on the 29th in the evening. I was just looking at it. It's 3-hole punch. I believe it's 6 p.m.
Oh, yeah. Does that give you enough time to do other things on that agenda for that evening?
Well, the other thing we're going to talk about is reviewing goals, and if we need to set up a separate meeting for that, then we can do it. So right now what we can do is we can have some time allocated and so forth, but really be flexible and say the priority right now is the mandated training and so forth.
Tracy, that is here, right?
So that's 2 hours?
6 to
In
8
here,
or
yeah.
6 to 9. If we
Well,
do
I mean,
6
right
to
now it's
8,
on
if
the
we do
calendar.
6 to 8,
It's on the calendar for 6 to 8.
it is
I can push it later.
8:30.
I don't
If
know.
we do 6 to 8, we'll never get to goals. So it's really what people want. We could set up a separate meeting. It doesn't have to be August, it could be September.
We're already here, can we just do it all at once?
I don't care. I'm game. I'll bring a sleeping
I'm
bag.
fine.
I can bring coffee.
I'll increase it to 9 o'clock.
Fine, okay. And we'll talk really, really quickly. All right, now I'm going to turn us over to the district-wide safety plan public hearing on August 19th. Todd, please take it away.
So this is also a follow-up from last meeting when Ari from Quest R3 was here giving an update on the district-wide safety plan. So the next official step will be on the August meeting. We have to have a public hearing for anybody that has any questions or comments related to the district-wide safety plan. So the request from last meeting was to have a red line version showing the changes that were made from last year's plan to the proposed one for 24-25, so that's attached. So again, this is just an opportunity if there's any other questions or comments from the board about this before we have it on the August meeting for public hearing.
Okay, wonderful. Let's see. First reading, so the policy committee met and we went through several policies. There were 4 policies that were reviewed and no changes were needed. It was policy 6220, protection of pupil rights policy, policy 1120, board policy development, 9010, gender neutral bathrooms, and 8160, dogs on school property. So no changes were made to those policies. There were 2 policies where changes were made, and so we've moved them to the first reading. So 6410, meal charge and prohibition against meal shaming policy. There we combined actually two policies. And in working with council, then there were some specific changes. What we did add was the state is providing free meals through 2027. And so kind of that was incorporated into it, but it was written hopefully in such a way that it will just sunset, and we do not need to then revise the policy again after 2027 for that. And then the other was the homebound instruction, and there the state has made several changes. One being the number of hours required and so forth. So again, working with council, we made the revisions to that policy. So this will be a first reading, and then it'll go through a second reading and then be adopted. So if anyone has any questions, just let us know, or we could discuss it now. All right, then I'm going to move us on to the action items. I need a motion to approve the minutes from June 10th and the minutes from June 24th, 2024.
Eric and Jim?
Okay, any discussion on either or both of those minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve the finance reports for the month ending June 30th, 2024.
Eric and Angela?
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the personnel agenda.
Eric and Angela?
Any discussion?
Yes. I am in the personnel list as a volunteer coach, so I will be voting on it because it really has no impact.
Correct, as a volunteer, you do not receive any type of monetary compensation.
This is the appropriate place to ask a question. I see resignations on there. Where does that leave us in terms of our foreign language department for this school year?
We're short one.
We're only short one.
And on the list, maybe I oversaw it, but I did not see a coach for girls varsity basketball, or is that something I oversaw, I missed? Or we don't have somebody yet? Oh, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve a 30-day emergency transportation contract bid to Greene County DSS.
Kelly and Eric?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the transfer from general fund to the cafeteria fund resolution.
Eric and Kelly?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve additional transfer to the 2024 capital reserve fund in the amount of $200,000.
Eric, I need a second. Jim?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the contract between the Greenville Central School District and the Atlantic Contracting and Specialties in the amount of $85,000 for the emergency crawl space abatement project.
Eric? Jim?
Any discussion?
I have a question.
Oh.
Is this the amount that it's going to cost us? Because we had approved up to 200,000, so this is within that amount?
Correct. This is just the contractor doing the abatement. So there's other expenses for schoolhouse construction management, for SEI design, and also the testing, ambient testing. But yes, this is 85 coming out of the 200.
Okay, but there are going to be other costs still associated with this particular abatement?
Correct, yes. We are not looking like we will get to the 200. We're staying under that. This came in lower than what the original projection was when we set the 200 aside.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve, I need a motion motion to approve the contract between the Greenville Central School District and Honeywell Law Firm for the 24-25 school year.
Angela and Kelly.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. I need a motion to approve the contract between the Greenville Central School District and Ferrara Fiorenza PC for the 24-25 school year. And this is the firm that does our policies.
Eric and Angela.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the contract between the Greenville Central School District and the Crossroads Center for Children from July 1st, 2024 to August 9th, 2024.
Kelly and Eric.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the contract between the Greenville Central School District and the Wildwood School Year Program from September 4th, 2024 through June 25th, 2025, and/or Wildwood Summer Extension Program from July 8th through August 16th, 2024.
Eric and Kelly.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the contract between the Greenville Central School District and the Devereaux Advanced Behavioral Health from July 1st, 24 through June 30th, 2025.
Kelly. Eric.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the consulting mentoring services agreement between the Greenville Central School District and Joseph Lopez for the 24-25 school year.
Angela and Kelly.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. It's against.
All right, input items for discussion at a future meeting. Does anyone have anything? Okay, then a couple of reminders. We just talked about the July 29th workshop, then from 6 to, what did we say, 9?
Yes.
Okay, and then our next board and business meeting is August 19th. Okay, so please add those to your calendars. And then the closing open forum, please note the same guidelines apply as stated during the first open forum. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Do we have any emails? No? No. Okay, then I could have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Dave and Jim.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
That was long.
3 minutes off.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.